Hello everybody, this is Graeme, and today I'm going to be looking back at the best games of 2024. Or maybe just my favorite games of 2024, or at least the games I want to get back to the table from 2024. So let's start with my number 10. My number 10 game is a flip and write game with some drafting called French Quarter. Your job in this game is to explore New Orleans and take in all the sights and sounds of this vibrant city. Each round there's going to be cards flipped over for the different modes of transportation, and the corresponding dice will be rolled. Players then draft the dice and use the corresponding card. Players use the card actions to mark up the corresponding tracks on their own personal sheet, things like experiencing the food, culture, and shopping, etc. Next, they'll move based on that card and arrive at a building to do more actions, that is, mark off more tracks. Finally, place the number from the drafted die in the building following some standard placement rules. Now, I really like that main mechanism of this game, and there's a variety of ways to score and get bonuses, and I feel like I have a lot of small decisions to be made on my turn, which is always enjoyable. So that's my number 10 game, French Quarter. My number 9 game is called Forage. Each player takes on the role of a cheesemaker in France in I think it's the early 20th century. Each turn, players will return their workers and create new cheeses in their quadrant and collect resources. And players are all doing this simultaneously. Once each player has taken their turn, you rotate the board 90 degrees, so you now have a new quadrant to take actions in. And each quadrant has a different way to score. And each player has a player board which can be upgraded to offer maybe different scoring options or to give them an upgraded ability or like an ongoing ability. What makes this game stand out from your normal worker placement game is the fact that your workers will face different ways when you place them. It's going to be dictated by the age of the cheese or quantity of resources you want to get. If you make let's say, an aged blue cheese, you must use your blue cheese worker and place them facing to the left, I believe. After 3 turns to the board, that worker is now facing you, and that's when you get your worker back to use it again. And it's a fun balancing act. You want to make sure that you make the old cheeses, but they tie up your workers for a few turns, and you only have 3 workers to use. Each of them can only make 1 type of cheese. So careful planning is required. For this one, the game is quick and enjoyable, but the theme was what really got me. Everything is tied to cheese, and I really like the project cards. Each one is a different cheese. And I don't know of any other game that comes with a cheese and game pairing. So that's my number 9 game, Forage. My number 8 game is called Skyrise. Each player takes on the role of humanity's greatest visionaries to build a city in the sky. The basics of this game are auctions, not something I'm normally a big fan of, but if I do play an auction game, I like ones where the bidding is fixed. That's exactly what Skyrise does. Each player has a set of towers with different numbers that are visible to all players. The first player will place one of their towers down, then in turn order, each player will place out a tower in adjacent areas that has higher value or their pass. When all the players pass, the winning player leaves their tower where it is and collects the token from that section. What I really like about this one is you see exactly what options are available that the other players have. So the enjoyment of this game, for me anyway, is either trying to get a spot I really need for the lowest possible tower I think I can, or forcing you to use a higher tower if it's a space I think that you really need. This is another quick game, both in play and teach, that I found very enjoyable. The tension of trying to win a space with a token that you really need is always fun. Do you go big, or do you make it so the other players have to go big just to stop you? Always a fun decision. So that's my number 8 game, Skyrise. So the first couple of games on my list were definitely on the shorter or lighter side of things. The next one is actually on the heavier side, and that's Daoshi. In this game, you take on the role of a city magnate looking to expand the city to bring in more inventions. As the city grows and the trade increases, you need to exploit the surrounding forests and rivers for their natural resources. Your new and powerful inventions need steam, which is produced by burning coal and heating the river water. With your inventions, you're going to bring prosperity to the city and electrifying the districts to bring further inventions to life. But you can't continue to exploit nature without some consequences. So you might have to give back. Maybe some reforestation projects to try and hide the fact that you abused the natural resources to get where you are today. On a player's turn, they're going to do one of 2 actions. Either powering up their buildings, housing their inventions through the use of steam to produce refined goods, wealth, points, or other things, or they're going to move their magnet around the city in a rondel fashion, that is, go far as they want, and then end up in an action space and exploit resources. If you exploit nature too much and come into conflict with nature, you'll be forced to reduce your benefits. You can remove these conflicts and defease the yokai by taking some other actions during your turn. This game is all about balance. You need to be doing a little bit of everything. You can't focus solely on one aspect of the game because the game gears are all intertwined, and getting that balance right is how you win this game. So that's my number 7 game, Daoshi. My number 6 game is a reworking of an older game. Black Forest takes some of the ideas of Glass Road and reworks them by turning the game into a worker placement game. If you've never played Glass Roads before, you don't need to know anything about the original to enjoy this game. But if you have played Glass Roads, you'll definitely recognize some aspects of Black Forest. So in Black Forest, you own a small glassmaking workshop and go around from village to village to enlist the aid of specialists. These specialists will allow you to gain resources either outright or through trade, maybe get some more locations like ponds and fields, or help you build a variety of buildings. And all the resources you gain go onto your resource wheel. As you gather raw materials, you're going to automatically consume them and produce refined material by turning the appropriate wheels, which track all of your resources. What intrigues me most about this game is actually the variety of buildings and trying to figure out some synergies of these buildings before the other players come along and purchase them out from under you. But that's always a fun puzzle. Of course, to get these buildings, you need to clear your land to make room for them. But your land is often where you gather the basic resources you need for the construction material. So making sure you have your timing right is going to be critical for this game. This is a nice, solid Euro game. I don't think it replaces the original Glass Road, but does a good job to make sure you're aware that it's connected while still being a game in its own right. So that's my number 6 game, Black Forest. Number 5 on my list is River of Gold. In River of Gold, players take on the role of river merchants who are working with the different samurai clans to claim the wealth, glory, and wisdom from the river and the ports, shrines, and markets along its banks. You can also be delivering contracts to gain favor with the various nobles and clans along the river. Now, this is a kind of roll and move game, but don't let that worry you. You do roll the die, but you can modify the value by hopefully spending some of your divine favor. And once you've done that, you can take one of 3 actions. You're either going to be building a building in the area that matches the icon on your die, you can deliver goods to a customer card in your hand that matches the region of your die, or you can sail one of your ships the number of spaces as a number on your die and interact with the buildings in the surrounding port that you end up at to get some sort of benefits. And the good thing is, all 3 actions are as important as the others. Now there is a fair bit of randomness because of the dice rolls, but there definitely is some mitigation that happens during the game. I like that the game is quick and easily explained, and it lasts a good amount of time, and sometimes I feel it actually over sooner than I would like, but it always feels satisfying. It's light enough to quickly get up and playing, but still heavy enough where you're making meaningful decisions on what to do with your die roll. So that's my number 5 game, River of Gold. My next game is yet another game about harnessing natural resources. This is Salton Sea. This lake is a real location in California that is perfect for generating geothermal power, and that's what this game was all about. You drill into the ground to extract brine, which after it's been processed means you can obtain lithium and some batteries. Once you have this brine, lithium batteries, you can sell them to the firms that are looking for renewable energy and are willing to pay for it, allowing them to lead the way to a completely renewable future. For the gameplay, this is an action selection game with hand management. You can place one of your workers on an action on your player board, or use one of your cards for its action. And this is one of the key things for this game, multi-use cards. Each card can be used for its action or to pay for an action. Most actions like drilling rights, research, buying shares cost money, and your cards are worth certain dollar values. $1 at the start of the game, but you can buy $3 and $5 cards as well. When paying, you must discard those cards for the amount, but those cards usually offer better versions of your board actions. Having a $5 card means you have a pretty awesome action, but if you have to use it, you don't get any change from it. And the money in this game is very tight, so making the best use of what you have in your hand for money and actions is going to be critical. And that's what I really enjoy about that aspect in Salton Sea. Figuring out the best combination of cards to keep while still being able to perform the enhanced actions from the cards I have left is critical. All the while making sure I'm fulfilling contracts, buying shares in the 3 companies when they're still cheap, being the first to fulfill some goals, and making sure I'm fulfilling end-of-game cards as well. So Salton Sea is my number 4 game of 2024. My number 3 game is Pampero. Players take on the role of running a power company in Uruguay. Luckily, the strong winter wind called the Pampero blows across Uruguay, making it prime for generating power with wind turbines and maybe even putting up some solar panels to help the production of power. You need to be expanding your power grid and fulfilling the requirements from all areas across Uruguay, and maybe even exporting some excess power to Brazil and Argentina for extra points. And although there is a lot going on in this game on a lot of tracks, the basics are hand management. Each player starts the game with the same basic 8 cards, which are played into one of 2 rows in front of you or your tableau. That will affect where you can take that action and what their prerequisites and costs will be. And on your turn, you can either play a card or retrieve all the cards from one row. And after 3 actions, you take a consolidation action where you get to retrieve the rightmost card from your tableau, generate batteries, collect income, and advance the game timer. During the game, you're going to get options to upgrade your basic action cards, complete contracts, build more wind turbines and transformers to expand your network. You'll also want to be moving up the various tracks to gain better income and hopefully fulfill some mid-game and end-game scoring conditions. There's a lot to keep track of, but most of it makes thematic sense, so it's easier to understand the flow. That's my number 3 game, Pampero. My number 2 game of 2024 was a real surprise for me. After the first play, I wasn't completely sold on it, but each subsequent play I saw more and more of what this game had to offer, and that game is Stevens. Stevens takes place in the mid-18th century after a big earthquake that destroyed Lisbon and much of the southern coast of Portugal. So many windows were broken and destroyed that demand increased so much that William Stevens, a British businessman, decided to expand his business in the region by investing in glassmaking. The players take on the roles of master glassmakers working in the Stevenson's glass factory, trying to become the most prestigious of the region. Players will develop their works, put money into investments, and create local jobs. Players will also be using the glass products that they created to fulfill foreign contracts. The game uses an interesting action selection. You're either going to be hiring a worker by paying the costs and opening up an ability in your board, or you're creating glass or collecting resources by taking a cube off of the board. Whenever you take a cube off the board, you either are activating all the craftspeople at that spot where you took the cube, and all players who have craftspeople at that spot will activate their own workers, or you're going to be performing it in an investment action or taking a contract. Timing is another critical part of this game. The round ends when 2 of the 4 furnaces in Stevens' factories are empty, and that's completely up to the players. Once the round is complete, several things will happen which may trigger the end of the game. Now this game has really grown on me throughout my plays of this. Each time I play, I find something else I want to explore. I do know that well is probably limited and the shine might come off after a few more plays, but right now, Stevens is one of my favorite games from 2024. In fact, it's my second favorite. And my number 1 game of 2024 is another reworking of an older game. The game is called El Burrow, and it's a reworking of La Granja. In this one, players are working to develop their farm in Mallorca to grow fruits and vegetables and raise pigs. You then have to use your burro or your donkey to transport these items to the port of La Palma. The game uses multi-use cards. Again, one of my favorite mechanisms, and not the first time it's shown up on my list. The cards have 4 parts to them depending on how you slip them under the 4 sides of your player board. Along the way to the port, you can also deliver food to the various markets and even help other players by delivering goods on their contracts to move up different tracks. Now, in a game round, you're going to be playing 1 card. You're then going to draft dice and take the appropriate action, and the last die that hasn't been drafted, all players get to do that action. Another mechanism I really love. You'll also be delivering goods to various markets and, of course, trying to fulfill some contracts. Now, there's a lot of moving parts to this game, and it's definitely on the heavier side, but man, this game is enjoyable. Each time I play, I try a different tactic. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but even when it doesn't, I still feel like I've learned something for the next time I play. And one of the designers on this one is actually one of my favorite, Andreas Odendahl, or Ode for short. Whenever I see a game with his name on it, it's an instant buy for me, and I have yet to be disappointed, and this one was no exception. This one definitely taxes your brain, but in a thoroughly enjoyable way. So my number 1 game of 2024 is El Burrow. So there you have it. My favorite games from 2024. There were so many games from 2024 that I really enjoyed, and some of them that I haven't got a chance to, or maybe played enough yet, that I feel had a good chance to make this list. So comment down below. What were your favorite games of 2024, or games from this year that you're dying to try, or maybe think I should try based on my list? But anyway, that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video on the Dice Tower. Hey, do you want to know what's going on with Dice Tower? Do you want to know about our events, our cruises, special things that we're going to do live here in the Dice Tower? Subscribe to Dice Tower Digest. Go to dicetowerdigest.com. It's a newsletter that we send out bi-weekly. We won't use your email for anything else. This is just to get you some information about the Dice Tower so you'll be up to date. Thanks for watching.